5 Live Formula One.
And welcome to Montreal in Canada, and the setting this weekend is the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, a challenging circuit for the teams and drivers. It's on the Ile Notre Dame, just a stone's throw from downtown Montreal, and let me tell you, the city really embraces Formula One. They love it when Formula One is in town, and do you know what? They've seen a bit of action, not too much yesterday because there was a lot of rain which affected track activity in FP1. We got going again, and then FP2 also threw up some surprises. A few difficulties for Max Verstappen and Red Bull Racing, and we've had 3 different drivers topping each of the practice sessions. I'm Rosanna Tennant, and I'm joined in the commentary box by our lead commentator Harry Benjamin, European sports car champion Alex Brundle, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson is with us too. Harry, 3 different drivers topping the 3 sessions. It's been so difficult to read, hasn't it? And Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, who you'd argue would be the favourites coming into this weekend, not one of those top drivers. It was Lando Norris in FP1, Fernando Alonso in FP2, and Lewis Hamilton with the upgraded Mercedes in FP3. So is it fair to say qualifying is wide open this afternoon?
Absolutely. We are going into the pure unknown, and that is how we absolutely love it. We think Hamilton and Mercedes might have had the wick turned up quite a lot in FP3, but I still think that car looks pointed. It looks good. They have they brought a new front wing in last time on George Russell's car in Monaco. Hamilton has it as well now, and this is really, if you're going to pick a track, this is one of Lewis Hamilton's favourite. He's got the record number of poles, the record number of wins, 6 and 7 apiece, shares that with Michael Schumacher. He's feeling confident, but you're absolutely right. Red Bull, we know they're not liking the curbs at the moment, and they're still not liking them. Verstappen avoiding taking the curbs in all of the practice sessions so far. It's wide open. Ferraris need to find some time too, but again, we haven't had enough dry track time to see what really is the pecking order. It's going to be an exciting next hour or so.
It really is. Yes, Charles Leclerc finishing P10 in FP3, and his teammate Carlos Sainz back down in P12, and they were the ones that we were all watching coming into this weekend. Charles Leclerc saying that this was going to be an opportunity for them. Can it still be that opportunity he spoke of on Thursday? Alex Brundle, I've got to ask, after some interesting practice sessions, as a driver, how do you approach this qualifying session? Have they had enough dry running to know where their braking points are, to know where those limits are, and to push the envelope in the right places?
Well, they have had a bit of a go, haven't they? But it was in incredibly low grip conditions in FP3. All of the drivers struggling with various different balance issues in the cars. It's going to be an incredibly interesting session for them to try to optimize their cars. And a final curveball for the day, we're seeing on our race control screens that the risk of rain is 80% at some point during this qualifying session, so they could well be back to wet conditions at some point. Various cars having various different strengths and weaknesses throughout the lap. It was relatively close at the very front at the end of FP3 with the Mercedes engined cars in general. I'm talking about the Merc and the McLaren and the Aston Martin populating heavily the top 10. Let's see how they shake out though after 3 stages of qualifying, Rosanna.
You're right, 80% chance of rain. My weather app is telling me possible light rain in the next hour. It's about 20 degrees, so it's actually quite nice and warm. But since FP3, we have had some rain. It was quite heavy at one point, but it is now dry, and the rain has dried up very quickly. No puddles in the paddock, no puddles in the pit lane. So, keep your fingers crossed, or perhaps you want rain. Perhaps that is what you are hoping for, if your drivers perhaps would make the most of that opportunity. Andrew Benson, it's been a busy break between FP3 and this qualifying session. I'm standing outside RB's hospitality unit because they've been making headlines. Yuki Tsunoda securing his future. What can you tell us?
Well, they've taken up a 1-year option on his contract, Rosanna. Team principal Laurent Mekies said they've been impressed by his, quote, simply phenomenal progress this season. He has had an impressive season, Tsunoda. What they haven't done, though, is mention anything about a second driver. We know that Daniel Ricciardo, his current teammate, has not had a particularly strong season, and it seems to be that the second seat's between him and Liam Lawson, their reserve driver, who, of course, was so impressive when he substituted for an injured Ricciardo towards the end of last year for a few races.
It's funny, isn't it? Just as the headlines come out after a session where Yuki Tsunoda was back down in P15 and Daniel Ricciardo was up in P6. It's a funny old world we live in, this Formula One world, isn't it? We'll have to watch this space when it comes to the second driver for RB in 2025. Right, well, I can hear engines firing up. Qualifying is about to get underway. Harry Benjamin, it's time to find out who's going to be on pole position for the Canadian Grand Prix, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Cars queuing up at the end of the pit lane, and green light is on, and out they go. Zhou Guanyu in the Sauber is straight out because he's had a really troubled weekend so far, has the Chinese driver, under pressure to find a seat next year in Formula One. He had a crash in FP1, a crash in FP3. Very little running done for the Sauber driver. He's first out, followed by the two Alpines of Gasly and Ocon. Sargent and Stroll then follow suit. All 20 cars will make their way out in this session before we eliminate the slowest 5 come the end of the, well, now next 17 minutes or so. But what a beautiful place as well to go racing. It's a fan favourite, it's a driver favourite, the circuit Gilles Villeneuve on the Ile Notre Dame, as you said, Rosanna, at the start of the show. A man-made island in the St. Lawrence River, 4.361 kilometres, 2.7 miles, 14 turns.
And Lando, we've had light drops reported from turn 7 to 8, but we don't see anything on the radar. Very light drops.
With the added element of rain on the way. That was Lando Norris's radio being told by his engineer where the raindrops are. The grey clouds are circling above. 80% chance of rain. This could be fun, Alex.
Oh, well, I'm amazed that they've not all gone piling out of the pit lane to get a banker lap in, but they've got the balance here. They know that the track is miles away from where it's going to be at the end of these sessions. We've seen huge track evolution already through FP3, but if we have drops of rain in the air, I'm amazed that the teams aren't getting out there and at least getting a banker lap in on those soft compound tyres before they potentially have to move to the Inter. We can't yet see that on the camera, so perhaps their information down at Ferrari, who appear to still be sitting in the pit lane with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, better than ours then up in the commentary box, and indeed McLaren's for Lando Norris.
Well, it's the other half thinking, well, actually, there's no point in us all piling out at the same time, because we've seen in practice traffic management is such an issue here, particularly coming along that long back straight and backing up into the final chicane.
Yeah, it's a big deal, but not doing a lap in the wet is a bigger deal, mate. To try to get yourself through this first part of qualifying. In any case, it's only a few drops. We can see in our commentary box Lance Stroll telling the team that the tyres are cold as he starts his first flying lap, and Aston Martin are rushing to get on with it and try to set a lap on the board here. We'll see if waiting it out or going for it early is going to prove the best strategy. No obvious rain on the camera lenses so far.
Only the two Mercedes are still in the pits, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, and as I say that, they are both released. First Russell, then comes Lewis Hamilton, the man who topped free practice 3, the man who has 6 pole positions around this track. Could Lewis Hamilton be a serious contender for pole position come the end of this qualifying? He's feeling confident. Mercedes with upgrades, feeling confident as a team, but there will be a battle on their hands. You could never rule out Max Verstappen in his Red Bull, the two Ferraris as well, and Verstappen on his first fly already going quick, but approaching traffic coming in to the final chicane. Kevin Magnussen just about gets out of the way of his Haas as Verstappen sweeps through the final chicane. The wall of champions greets you on the driver's right hand side, and across the line for Verstappen, his opening lap time a 1:15.1.
Nice one from Verstappen. Drivers queuing up on the right-hand side, down towards that final chicane. That's an amendment to the race director's notes for qualifying, telling drivers who are not on a fast lap that they need to stay to the extreme right of the circuit in order to stay out of the way of those drivers piling down the left-hand side of the circuit to take the natural line into the right-left chicane. Lando Norris on a 14.5 across the line for the first effort in his McLaren.
Norris, Verstappen, Perez, the only 3 lap times so far that have been set competitively. Coming into turn 1 though, Carlos Sainz of the Ferrari gets it wrong, runs deep, goes wide and has to cut across the grassy chicane and rejoins. That'll be a lap ruined for Carlos Sainz, who's not had the smoothest of sessions so far. Frustrated in practice, blocked by Pierre Gasly in the Alpine on his final flying run on the soft compounded tyre. He'll have to go again.
It's been a reasonably cool weekend weekend so far, and the track temperature has cooled still further into qualifying, just over 30 degrees, and you could see Sainz there struggle with a rear lockup. He didn't have the car where he wanted it to be. With the car more where he wants it to be, you can hear Lance Stroll at this stage. Better in the first sector, better in the middle sector. Is this his first lap across the line? It is in meaningful terms for Lance Stroll. Let's see where it puts him, up to the top of the timing sheets with 13 minutes to go in the session.
Both Aston Martins in the one dry free practice session we had earlier today were both looking very quick. Indeed, Alonso topping FP2 yesterday as well. George Russell flying in sector 1 as Sergio Perez reports on the radio that there is very low grip. This a track, Alex, where track evolution is absolutely massive with every lap a car goes round.
It's going to be last across the line, definitely, Harry, unless, of course, it rains. 2 purple sectors for George Russell so far in his Mercedes. The Englishman yet to set a time on the board at this stage of Q1. Nico Hülkenberg pops up to third position on a 14.6, but this is going to be a very tasty lap for the Mercedes that has looked so hooked up throughout the weekend so far. Let's see what George Russell has got across the line. 14.0, P1 for the Merc.
But what about Hamilton? His teammate is next across the line, fastest in the final sector, third fastest overall, about 4/10 off his teammate, as Oscar Piastri in the McLaren pops up into second. But this is Q1 and we focus on who gets eliminated. Those bottom 5 drivers at the moment still waiting for lap times from Kevin Magnussen, Alex Albon and Carlos Sainz before we get a full set. Lance Stroll on his last lap around. It was a quick lap for the Canadian on home soil. 6th fastest at the moment, getting oh so close to the wall of champions.
We're hearing Carlos Sainz has lost a lap, and we're listening to him now, and that's that rear lockup moment down to turn 1 that we did catch the first time around. But Carlos Sainz now losing out and has not got a lap on the board at this stage of qualifying. Will be the driver in trouble, potentially through to the end of the session. Under now a little bit of pressure to get a lap time nailed. Lando Norris jumps up to the top of the field in his McLaren as they continue to push, Harry, and try to optimise based around this quick track evolution.
Yeah, Norris was flying in all 3 sectors, immediately slows down and gets out of the way of the approaching Sauber of Valtteri Bottas, who makes his way round. It's Norris, Russell, Magnussen, the top 3 at the moment. Sainz has got his first proper lap on the board, enough for 4th fastest for the Ferrari ahead of Piastri. Albon, Alonso, Hamilton, Stroll, Gasly are the top 10. Then it's Hülkenberg, Bottas, Verstappen, Ocon, Leclerc 15th. In that elimination zone at the moment, it's Zhou Guanyu, Logan Sargent, Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo and Yuki Tsunoda. But still, lap times to find. Ricciardo finding time in the first and second sectors. So too are Sargent and Stroll. Stroll will come first across the line out of that gaggle, out of the final chicane, gets oh so close to the wall of champions. A little kiss of the wall across the line for Stroll, fastest of anybody in the final sector, goes second overall, 2,000ths behind Lando Norris. Sargent's next, he goes 5th.
Max Verstappen now coming up to finish his lap in the Red Bull, is currently in the drop zone. The World Championship leader that is powering his way down towards the final chicane. We join him now. It's a purple first sector, a decent middle. He should be able to jump nicely out of the drop zone with this one. An early lap from Verstappen puts him right at the top of the field.
It is going to be last across the line, as you say. It is just changing all the time. Alonso was in the top 5 a few moments ago. He's now down in 14th as Leclerc in the Ferrari goes 4th fastest. It's Verstappen at the moment, fastest overall on a 1:13.3. Norris, Stroll, Leclerc, Ricciardo, the top 5.
Perez now sitting in the drop zone. What's interesting as well here, as we see a big clatter of the wall for Lance Stroll.
Car feels okay, but right hand side contact. Yeah, copy, we're looking.
Into the wall of champions on the right hand side of that final chicane. Stroll bounces over the curb in the middle of the corner and just runs the car too wide. Rear contact first with the outside wall, then front contact. Doesn't appear to be damaged, but drivers able to do 6 and 7 and 8 laps on this set of soft compound tyres while still improving all the time.
Sainz going quickly at the moment, coming through the middle sector. He's just got to make his way round the hairpin at the moment as he accelerates up through the gears down that long long back straight which runs parallel with the rowing lake made for the Summer Olympics way back in 1976. It's a long way down. You get to almost 330 kilometers an hour before you slam on the brakes and weave your way through the chicane. The Wall of Champions greets you. Sainz negotiates it nicely across the line for the Spaniard. 5th fastest for Carlos Sainz. Verstappen tops, Norris, Stroll, Alonso, Sainz the top 5, Leclerc, Albon, Ricciardo, Russell, Magnussen the top 10. At risk, Hamilton, Perez, Gasly, Ocon and Zhou, with 8 minutes to go, find themselves in that elimination zone.
Gasly, Ocon and Zhou are in the pit lane, as are most of the field now, looking for another set of soft tyres. You can hear Lewis Hamilton, who is in the drop zone. This lap should put him easily, though, out of danger, and will drop Oscar Piastri, the McLaren driver, into that lower 5.
Russell goes to the top of the timings this time around. His teammate Lewis Hamilton is fastest of anybody in the middle sector, just making his way now to the line. The DRS system is activated. The flap in the rear wing opens down the main straight and then shuts as he slams onto the brakes. Hamilton goes 3rd.
So no rain yet. We're not seeing any conditions coming in, and indeed it doesn't look overbearingly threatening above the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve at the moment. How long, though, do you now wait? We're listening into Oscar Piastri in the drop zone at the moment, and could this be the reason why he looks to be threading his McLaren through the traffic?
Impeded massively by both cars.
Understood.
Yeah, that was Piastri being impeded by the RB of Yuki Tsunoda as he was making his way, arcing round the right-hander that approaches turn 6, and then just had to get right out of it.
Yeah, pressure then for Piastri, who now has to find a lap. He's only a 10th in the drop zone, should have the performance to do so, but it is a lot of pressure on that final lap with plenty of mistakes available on the table. Charles Leclerc also checking in.
Come on, they are being ridiculous.
We've seen it.
Also stressing about traffic, this time down towards the first turn. That first left-hander, Charles Leclerc, unable to take the apex in his Ferrari because of 2 cars in the way.
Okay, 6 minutes and 16 seconds remain, and we've had our first flurry, but the track evolving all of the time. The rain staying at bay for the time being, and at the moment at risk of being eliminated is Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, who's on an outlap. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull, who's out on track 2. In fact, the entirety of the field, bar a few, are out there. Gasly also down in 18th. Ocon and Zhou all need to go again. Sargent and Tsunoda right on the periphery too. But 5.5 minutes just over that remain, and Alex, I wouldn't be surprised if it all changed.
Yeah, difficult track conditions for everyone. We've seen a lot of mistakes out there today. Not only the threat of rain, but also the wind. It's really whistling through the trees, isn't it? You can see it, a tailwind down towards turn 10, making the drivers struggle under braking, which is what we can hear Sergio Perez struggling with now. He's in the drop zone, sitting in 17th in his Red Bull, looking to find a lap.
Down the back straight as the clouds above get ever darker. Will slam on the brakes, bit of traffic to his right-hand side, gets nicely out of the way, and he's bailed out of it and gone into the pits.
I'm not sure if he actually just messed up the braking zone there and decided he was going to continue into the pits anyway. We've got 5 minutes on the clock. That's enough time to get a set of tyres on and get back out there. But somewhat out of sequence here, Perez, because plenty of the drivers, in fact, most of competitors now in reasonable positions, beyond Russell, Verstappen and Hamilton, who would imagine they think are safe, are now heading out of the pit lane on their soft tyres rather than heading in to collect the next set.
Yeah, so top 3 still and staying in the pits for the time being. Russell, Verstappen, Hamilton. Everybody else, with the exception of Perez, who has just come in, is out onto the track. Pierre Gasly vying for a place in Q2. Had a fantastic qualifying in Monaco, getting through into the top 10 for the first time this season, out-qualifying his teammate only for the second time this season. Ocon has the advantage, 6-2 in Esteban Ocon's favour. Ocon, though, also trying to get out. He's only a 10th or so behind his teammate.
So the two Mercedes have now gone out on another set of soft tyres. Max Verstappen still sitting in the pit lane, and I think that's brave, given the amount of track evolution that we've seen throughout the weekend so far. Both Mercedes deciding to protect their position. We've got a Hamilton-Tsunoda Piastri incident. That was what we heard Oscar complaining about on the radio a few moments ago. That is being noted at the moment, but not yet investigated.
Gasly to the line in his Alpine, second fastest, displaces Verstappen, and I think you've hit the nail on the head, Alex. It's brave from Red Bull and Verstappen to stay into the pits. If the Alpine is finding that much time and getting up into second, what more can the others on the grid find? In fact, it's not enough for Piastri, only 11th fastest.
They've got time, Red Bull, if they choose, just still to send Verstappen out, but it's running out quite quickly.
The concern I have with Verstappen here, and it's a total punt, is that they did have an ERS issue earlier on in the weekend. Now, I don't know why they wouldn't send him back out to defend that position with that much track evolution going on. And we can see Max Verstappen tumbling down and down the order here with Norris going P1.
Sargent's gone quicker than Verstappen as well. Verstappen currently in 7th. Norris tops the times a 1:12.9. Ricciardo crosses the line. He goes up into 8th spot in that elimination zone. At the moment, it's Hülkenberg, Albon, Bottas, Perez and Zhou. They're all out on track. No sign yet of Verstappen making his way out into the track. We're just listening to a replay of Max Verstappen coming into the pits.
Yeah, don't necessarily as well.
Okay, Max, we'll need a bit more detail than that. Not everything is digital, please, mate.
So Max Verstappen has a problem with his downshifts, but also he got stopped by the FIA to go on the weighbridge too, which would have cost him time before he could actually go to his garage. So Verstappen then, though, has now come out of the pits. He's on an out lap. He'll do it in time. 2 minutes on the clock, leaving it to the very last minute. Time's improving all the time. Russell's coming into the final sector, has a couple of corners left. He's going well too. Sainz needs to find time. He's down in 15th. So too does Piastri and Sergio Perez. They are the big names at the moment at risk of being eliminated in the next minute and 42 seconds. Russell goes second.
Yeah, Russell jumping up the order. Mercedes looking strong and safe so far, as are Aston Martin. Let's see if Verstappen's able to get a lap in. He should be able to do so from there, I would have thought, but what will the traffic be like? Hamilton now finds himself P1. Sainz a little bit behind Hamilton, but a long way clear of the drop zone. Should be able to put him into a safe position.
And Sainz is coming up to Max Verstappen, who is weaving left and right, trying to get heat into his tyres along that back straight. He'll get out of the way of Sainz, sees him coming, pulls right over to the right, allows Sainz through to take the chicane. Just the run to the line for Carlos Sainz, currently down in 15th. Where does this put him? It's enough for 4th. Hamilton went fastest as well in that last lap around. Verstappen will get one go at it, so too will Sergio Perez.
Piastri is the driver that I'm watching outside of the ones just coming across the line, because Piastri is on a bit of a better lap. I'm not sure it's that much better. We're following and listening into Charles Leclerc. Let's see what he can do.
Charles Leclerc out of the chicane to the line, up through the gears. 6th fastest of anybody in the final sector. Only 6th overall. Bottas up into 12th. Perez will be next across the line, negotiates the final chicane. Personal best sector 1 and 2. He's currently plumb last. This puts him only 12th, ahead of Sargent, Bottas and Verstappen. In that elimination zone, it's Ricciardo, Ocon, Albon, Hülkenberg and Zhou. Verstappen, though, coming through the hairpin, is lighting up the sector times. Fastest of anybody in sector 1 and 2.
Found his way to 2 purple sectors, ran last of everyone as a result of that issue and the hold-up, and as such he's going to find a blinding lap here. Max Verstappen. Piastri managed to find a great final sector to put him out of the drop zone, but Verstappen is in the zone. We'll need this lap.
Verstappen then to the line. I tell you what, he might force his teammate to drop down into the elimination zone. Verstappen goes to the top. That puts Perez in 15th, but behind Perez, Albon is having a decent lap. Nobody else is improving. Only Albon can stop Perez from making his way through into Q2. Can Perez get through into Q2. Hold on to that 15th spot. He won't. Albon crosses the line, knocks Perez out into Q1. It's back-to-back Q1 eliminations for Sergio Perez, who visibly frustrated in his car, bangs the halo. Sergio Perez, who only just announced his contract extension with Red Bull through to 2026 off the back of a tough Monaco Grand Prix, arrives in Canada and is out in 16th.
Yeah.
And that is all he had to say on the matter.
Hugh Bird looks on in disbelief. Sergio Perez, 400ths outside of Q2 there. The sheer unhappiness, the sheer aggression with which he bangs the steering wheel absolutely says it all for Sergio. What does that say about his season? The recently re-signed Red Bull driver out in back-to-back Q1 sessions.
Sergio Perez out in 16th ahead of Valtteri Bottas, who continues to out-qualify his teammate Zhou Guanyu. Esteban Ocon failing to make it through into Q2. He'll start in 18th. Nico Hülkenberg, the man who usually comes alive on a Saturday in qualifying, out-qualified by his teammate Kevin Magnussen. Now that has only happened twice so far this season. Hülkenberg out in 19th, and Zhou Guanyu, after a pretty tough weekend with crashes in FP1 and FP3, 20th and last, and a few tenths off the pace. Perez, Bottas, Ocon, Hülkenberg, Zhou, all out in Q1.
The big scalp, obviously. Perez, not a good day for Ocon as well, with Pierre Gasly just making it through in the other Alpine, and the story of their two-season continues. Agree with what you say, hear what you say about Nico Hülkenberg. It's going to be interesting to see what has happened there for him to be out at this stage of qualifying. Kevin Magnussen finds himself just in as well in P13 in the other Haas.
Alex Brundle, were you a little bit lost for words there when Perez was knocked out? You were struggling to find the right words.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that that had happened back to back for Perez on such different. You know, when that kind of thing happens in Monaco, in some way you understand it. But when it happens around a circuit like this, as we're watching Max Verstappen at the front of the field string together 3 purple sectors, I was lost for words, and I continue to be so, Rosanna.
But you know what, it's the optics as well, isn't it? It was Alex Albon that shunted him down. I mean, all of the history of Alex Albon and Red Bull, and for him to be the one that knocks him out. I mean, the headlines write themselves, don't they? Well, that was pretty fast and furious, Q1. Looking forward to Q2 already. Just a quick weather update from me, Harry. There are big dark clouds, but at the moment, those tiny little raindrops that appeared at the very beginning of Q1, they seem to have gone, but it is still quite breezy. Not as breezy as it was in the mid part of Q1. So it's very changeable. The conditions really swinging from one extreme to the other this weekend. And if you were with us yesterday, you'll know we had huge hailstones here, and it's June, it's summer. Although Andrew Benson did say that, you know, you can expect all things in Montreal, so maybe I should have expected that.
So, Rosanna, I'm just looking back at the stats for qualifying this year. Perez's qualifying positions are like this from the start of the season: 5th, 3rd, 2nd, 4th, 11th, 16th, 16th. His season's just fallen apart in the last 3 races since Imola.
And wasn't that when he signed the contract supposedly in secret? You know, we found out later, but that was almost when the deal was done, and it seems to have been the undoing of him rather than the making of him.
Well, I don't know exactly when he signed the contract, but certainly in Monaco 2 weeks ago, everyone was saying, oh, it's definitely going to be Perez. Horner's decided to stick with Perez. And Horner was talking actually as if that was the case. He wasn't confirming it completely, but all it does is just underlines exactly what everybody else apart from Red Bull have been saying for the last few weeks, which is that Perez just isn't doing the job consistently enough. And what's bizarre is that at the end of last season, Red Bull said he's got to show more consistent performance in qualifying to earn his seat. And yet he's literally not done that, and they've signed him anyway. It's mystifying.
Do you think there's a chance that if it all remains this way towards the end of the season, they could renege on that contract, Andrew, or that's just never going to happen?
Well, they can always do whatever they want. They're Red Bull if they want to pay him off. And, you know, they're always saying that all the drivers who race for Red Bull are all Red Bull racing drivers, if you like. So that includes the 3 drivers in the second team as well. When I said 3 drivers, I'm including the reserve driver Liam Lawson in that too. But the strange thing is they're not going to put Tsunoda in the Red Bull because they don't really rate him. They're not going to put Ricciardo in the Red Bull because he's being beaten by Tsunoda. And it'd be hard to imagine them putting Lawson into a Red Bull straight after they haven't had him in an RB for a year. He may well get an RB seat for next season. We don't know that yet. But it just underlines the slightly mystifying decision-making process that's going on there at the moment over that second seat. And you know, it'd be interesting to hear what he says to you, Rosanna, when you speak to him in the pen, because you know, on the face of it, his season is falling apart in exactly the same way as it fell apart last year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to him. I fear it may be a while before we see him in the media pen. A couple of drops of rain at the moment, which is an interesting prospect. And I have to say, I'm mightily impressed with Max Verstappen's parking. He's come out of the Red Bull garage and he is honestly millimetres away from the rear of the McLaren in front of him. Harry Benjamin, are you impressed with the parking situation that Max Verstappen has found himself in?
Well, as Andrew was talking, we saw it. I literally pointed to the screen, looked at Alex with my mouth wide open. That is as close as you want to get to another car in the pit lane.
I'm not sure what's more impressive, the parking or the ponchos, because the ponchos are being put on out in the stands. There are some great designs out there, but I sense the fans know what's up, and I sense the teams know what's up as well, which is why they're parking so close to each other in the pit lane, Rosanna, because they want to get out on the racetrack and get a lap in before the rain starts to come down, and indeed it is doing right now as we go green for Q2.
Here we go then, the second part of qualifying underway. 14 minutes and 47 seconds remain of Q2 as we look to eliminate the next 5 slowest drivers from this session. As the rain begins to come down, Piastri is not moving in the pit lane. Verstappen would quite like him to get a move on so he can get out. Is Verstappen going to have to wait for others to come through, or is the RB going to let him know?
No, he has to give way. He has to give way in that scenario. So the other cars are already in the fast lane. Verstappen cannot push out from the working lane, so he's going to be last then unless somebody lets him out or he finds a gap. There we go, of drivers onto the circuit there. So Piastri really costing Verstappen onto the racetrack.
First spots of rain reported turn 7, turn 8.
How long do you think this will last?
2 to 3 minutes.
So that's Lando Norris's radio. He's just making his way through turn 6 and 7 now, where the rain is expected. 7 arcs right and then takes you down the short straight towards the braking zone of turn 8, the quick right-left chicane of 8-9, and then you go towards the hairpin. So a few spits coming down, expected to intensify over the next 10 to 15 minutes. So it really is going to be a scramble to get out. They've got 13.5 minutes remain, and indeed everybody is out there except Charles Leclerc and Fernando Alonso.
Because drivers have gone for it so quickly though, and haven't built so slowly towards their lap for fear of the conditions, they're really having to hack through the traffic here of drivers that are still coming out of the pit lane. George Russell making his way now through turns 4, 5, 6 and then towards 7 and 8, having to make his way past a Red Bull. We can listen in on board with the Mercedes as both of those Mercedes, line astern, have got on with it very, very quickly.
Arcs his way through the left-hander of 8, now approaching the hairpin for George Russell, who only has a best qualifying here of 4th back in 2023, best race result of 4th, but the Mercedes right now is looking like it could be a podium challenger for this weekend, certainly in the hunt. Fastest of anybody in the first sector. Hamilton fastest of anybody in the middle sector as the opening lap times begin to come in for Q2.
What could be the opening lap times and the closing lap times for Q2, depending on how long and how hard this rain is. These drivers could be putting in the laps that put them through to Q3 or not. Russell, it has been across the line, so is Hamilton. We're waiting for further drivers now.
Hamilton to the line, he goes fastest. It's a 1:13.104 from Lewis Hamilton, a 1:13.121 for George Russell. Piastri's going quickly in the middle sector. Magnussen slots up into third. Everybody now out on the track. Leclerc and Alonso just coming into the final sector now to build up for their first flyer. This is the sound of Lando Norris in the McLaren. He goes up into fourth, just ahead of Carlos Sainz.
Very close still. They've still got tyre temperature, and tyre temperature is critical. It's what helps you move the rain out of the way in contact with the road. Piastri to P1 in the McLaren.
By over 0.6 of a second, the Australian fresh off the back of his Monaco Grand Prix podium, the first podium that he's managed to get this season, full of confidence in that McLaren. 0.6 clear at the moment of Lewis Hamilton. Then it's Russell, Magnussen, Norris, Sainz. The opening lap time, Sainz one though isn't representative. Tsunoda now starting his first flying lap. This is the sound of Max Verstappen as he slides his way through the final chicane. A quick right, then left, then it's foot flat to the floor as he approaches the line. Second fastest for the Dutchman.
It is second fastest for the Dutchman, who's also been noted for the way he peeled into the pit lane there. We did spot him making his way, blending with the traffic as he made his way through. See if anything comes of that, but more importantly, what's going to come of Alex Albon across the line.
Seventh fastest for Alex Albon. Logan Sargent also been running relatively well this weekend in a the Williams has been upgraded. Albon and Sargent going well so far. Albon just making it through into Q2 at the expense of Sergio Perez. Stroll is next to cross the line. He goes 8th. His teammate Fernando Alonso is the sound you can hear, up into 7th gear, then 8th as he crosses the line. Second fastest for the Spaniard.
Gorgeously smooth for Alonso through the final chicane, really delivering. It's been a difficult weekend for Ferrari. Will it continue for Leclerc? Decent lap so far, up to second, 0.3 back from Piastri.
Ricciardo going on a decent lap, so too is Gasly. Their first attempts. We'll see what Ricciardo has when he crosses the line. Tsunoda crosses first. It's fourth fastest for the Japanese driver, fresh off the back of re-signing for an extra year with RB. His teammate though goes faster. Daniel Ricciardo up into fourth. But what about George Russell? Fastest of anybody in sector 1, fastest of anybody in sector 2. Fastest of anybody. George Russell goes to the top.
Interestingly, it's not quite such a good lap for Lewis Hamilton, it would appear. He's following his teammate just behind, and he's going to pop up, I believe, sort of into the back end of the top 3. We're listening into Max Verstappen, who's going to have a bit of a moment here, is he? Close to another car ahead.
Just move out of the way.
Look out for
I
Gasly.
did that on purpose.
I think drivers complaining here because they're losing a lot from aero wash in relation to the cars ahead, and that's what's costing them, because Verstappen didn't appear to be that close to the Mercedes ahead. A big moment though for Lewis Hamilton through the final chicane is what cost him a bit of time. He sits now only third in comparison to his teammate.
I think there's a little bit of rain coming down in that final chicane as well, that's just making it a little bit slippy for the driver's liking. Just over 8.5 minutes left of Q2. Everybody from 11th downwards will be eliminated. That is currently Verstappen, Stroll, Albon, Gasly and Sargent, but times changing all of the time.
Yeah, they are changing all of the time, but they're not improving a lot, are they now? I've not got
Have we reached that point?
Too much in terms of improvement down the timing screen. Could be drivers just recovering to the pit lane for other sets of tyres. Logan Sargent's managed to find a better effort, sitting 15th and last of the runners at the moment, trying to get himself out of the elimination zone. Could just be drivers recovering to the pits. It could be the fact that we've reached the point with the rain where drivers are unable to improve.
13th fastest for Sargent, who does find a little bit of time, goes ahead of his teammate Alex Albon, who's in the pits. So too is Gasly, Stroll, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Magnussen and Alonso. Magnussen having a magnificent run so far. The man who has been suffering in qualifying this season, only out-qualified his teammate Nico Hülkenberg twice, and actually is looking at risk of losing his Haas seat come the end of the year. Currently sitting pretty in 7th position. His teammate out in Q1.
Also in the drop zone at the moment, and has been battling all the way through this session. Max Verstappen sits.
Don't say that very often, do we?
Sits in P11. He has found a better lap. It's a better lap. It's half tenth up on Sainz. But if the track is indeed a little bit more difficult, a little bit more wet now, Max Verstappen could have to find a lap here to get himself through to the final part of qualifying. He looks as though he's doing so at the moment. Red Bull pit wall. Lost a car already in this qualifying session. They'll be very keen not to lose another one. And he's only 0.007 up on the time of the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz at this stage.
Yeah, and Sainz has been struggling this weekend. Sainz is on another lap at the moment, and it's matching Verstappen, if a little bit slower. So Sainz coming through the middle sector now. Verstappen will cross the line first. Charles Leclerc also on another lap. Decent first sector for the Monegasque in the Ferrari with 6.5 minutes remain. Verstappen crosses the line. It's only ninth.
Only ninth at this stage, but the track is what the track is. We're on board with Sainz. Let's see if he can find an improvement and nudge Tsunoda down into the drop zone. Sitting 11th at the moment, the Spaniard in the Ferrari.
Through the chicane, struggling so far this weekend, and compared to his teammate. DRS wide open for Carlos Sainz. Goes up into 8th spot. Still can't match his teammate. Couple of tenths off Leclerc, who's sitting up in 5th at the moment and just finishing off his lap now. A little bit down in the middle sector on George Russell's fastest time. Leclerc to the line. Can't improve, stays 5th.
So the situation at the moment, Tsunoda, Stroll, Sargent, Albon and Gasly are in the drop zone. Verstappen teeters on the edge in 10th. The track is damp but not wet. Drivers are struggling to improve. 5 minutes 30 is sitting on the clock. So that's the situation that we have right now. Mercedes and McLaren very much sitting pretty. The teams and drivers have got to decide what they do now and how they can defend their position with variable rain, it would appear, falling around various areas of the circuit.
Well, they're not waiting long. They're already peeling out into the pits. And just getting a little replay of some commotion going on the rear right of the Williams of Alex Albon. The other three tyres all on, but struggling with that rear right tyre. Something with the wheel nut. They take it off again. The mechanics are really struggling to put that tyre on. Albon is now out on a lap, so they managed to fix that as we see a hairy moment for George Russell.
Holy moly. I just had a big moment at 4.
Didn't know it had that much lock. To be honest, he certainly found the rack stops with that one, George Russell, and it's like something from Tokyo Drift through the exit of turn 5.
That would have woken him up if he wasn't already awake, but George Russell absolutely flying at the moment. He's fastest of anybody, 4 minutes and 20 seconds to go. Everybody from 11th downwards currently at risk of elimination. Tsunoda, Stroll, Sargent, Albon and Gasly. Max Verstappen is only 10th fastest at the moment, still in the pits. Tyres now going on, but still a little bit of work going on the underside of that Red Bull. He's had a tough weekend so far as Max Verstappen. Everybody has been down on track time, but an electrical recovery system issue, an energy recovery system issue in practice for the Red Bull driver has seen him down on track time overall. Plus bumps, curbs are not the Red Bull's friend at the moment, and that is showing.
Listening in, Alexander Albon finds himself in the drop zone alongside his teammate Logan Sargent. This is a better lap for both of them, and indeed it's a better lap for everybody running in the drop zone at the moment. Lance Stroll also on an improved lap in the Aston Martin. So as we saw in the first session, despite the drops of rain, now the track recovering and the track development and improvement continues in the final 3 minutes.
So Russell and Hamilton in the pits. As I say that, Hamilton has gone back out, so I take that back immediately. The track is improving again. Sargent up into 5th in the Williams. His teammate Alex Albon, who hit the wall in free practice 3, damaging the rear suspension. That was his practice over. The team doing a great job of getting that fixed and him back out. Made it through with a spectacular lap in Q1 to get into this second part of qualifying. Approaches the line now for the Thai driver. 8th fastest, not as quick as his teammate Sargent, and we don't say that ever.
the development of the circuit as Lando Norris goes P1. Even more acute now as the track is drying, but also improving for these drivers. We're going to sit on board with Lance Stroll. A slight improvement will put him up to 5th, but this is going to be last across the line stuff, and we need to see on the driver tracker which drivers are last in the queue.
We are expecting some drops at the checkered flag, just for your info.
So there's the rain update from Ferrari pit wall to Charles Leclerc, Ricciardo and Tsunoda. Tsunoda's flying on his lap, actually. Let's see what he has as he comes across the line. It's 4th fastest for his teammate first, Daniel Ricciardo. Tsunoda getting a nice tow from Max Verstappen, though, across the line, enough to put the Japanese driver up into 2nd fastest. Only a 10th of Lando Norris's time, with a minute and a half just over that remain. Leclerc is 10th, Albon 11th, then it's Magnussen, Sainz in 13th, Verstappen 14th, Gasly in 15th. Some big names here needing to pull out some big laps as the track evolves all the time. With every lap, more grip, but the constant threat of rain, drops of it in certain areas of the track. At the moment, the track is steadily improving. Verstappen having a decent lap time, coming into the middle sector now, negotiates through the right-hander of 8, then the left-hand side of turn 9, before it's a short squirt down to the braking zone of turn 10. The hairpin, 180-degree right-hand lock of the steering wheel, tentative on the throttle as he rises up through the gears. 5th gear, then 6th, and approaching speeds of over 320 kilometers an hour. Max Verstappen currently down in 14th. Lewis Hamilton's on a flying lap at the moment in the middle sector too.
Yeah, Lewis Hamilton on a flying lap, as is Carlos Sainz. Verstappen has a moment through the final chicane. I think he'll be okay in the Red Bull to get himself through to the final part of qualifying, up to 5th. He lost a lot of time in the final sector. Sainz, though, Harry, in the middle of the lap, not really improving. Let's see what Lewis Hamilton could do through the final chicane. 7th at the moment in the Mercedes.
DRS open for Lewis Hamilton. 7th becomes 1st in this session. Tops the times, a 1:11.9. But what about the 2 Ferraris? Charles Leclerc in trouble here and not finding time. He's in 10th. He's not improving. What about Carlos Sainz, though? He's down in 14th. He is finding time as Russell goes fastest of anybody. Albon's also going quick. So too is Kevin Magnussen in the final sector, as Sainz almost has a moment in the final chicane into the wall of champions, avoids it, crosses the line. Sainz is out. It's 11th fastest for the Spaniard. He won't make it through. Carlos Sainz out. Charles Leclerc also out. The 2 Ferraris both out in Q2 in Canada as they don't make it through. Albon gets up into 6th fastest. Magnussen bails out at the end of his lap, and that is it. That is done. Q2 over in Canada. Ferrari look on in disbelief. Charles Leclerc arrives outside of the Ferrari garage and chucks his steering wheel away.
I guess well.
Yes.
Okay, I won't comment here.
Wow. Didn't sound happy with the way that they operated this session. They've not been fast all the way through FP3. Yeah, FP1, FP2 was a write-off. In FP3, they said, both drivers are saying, we need to do something about that first sector. We are miles off the pace. Lo and behold, they find themselves 11th and 12th in the second part of qualifying, and both out and not progressing.
Oh, it's so difficult. Not good.
And that's Carlos Sainz's views from his cockpit. Leclerc 11th, Sainz 12th, Sargent 13th, Magnussen 14th, Gasly 15th. Sensational lap at the end there from Alex Albon once again in the Williams to get himself up into Q3. That came at the expense of Charles Leclerc.
But it's less than a 10th of a second for both Ferraris, and I've got to wonder, Carlos Sainz with a huge moment through the last part of the lap, through that final chicane. Surely that's the 10th of a second that could have put him through to Q3. Charles Leclerc also missing out by even smaller of a margin. So in some way, he's got to look at himself and say, yes, we didn't have the car today, but equally, could the lap have been connected together more nicely or indeed more early in the session to give himself a better ending result?
Oh, right then. And breathe. That was good, wasn't it, Rosanna?
Yeah, shows how much we all know. Everybody had Ferrari tipped for the pole and the win this weekend, or is no one going to own up to that now?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Haven't heard it.
But even Charles Leclerc himself told me on Thursday during the media sessions that this weekend could be an opportunity for them. Looking through the season, this was one of the weekends they thought they could benefit from the weaknesses of the Red Bull, the RB20 not liking bumpy tracks, curbs. We've spoken about it at length, and this track is full of them. And yet here we are, both Ferraris out in Q2. Such strange scenes, but I'm kind of secretly quite excited because this means we're on for a pretty exciting Grand Prix already, and we've only set half the grid, Harry.
I'm really excited for this. We've got 2 Ferraris out, and that is going to be a challenge for them in the race. We've got also some players that are absolutely having great runs of it at the moment. Tsunoda finished that session in 4th, Albon in 6th. Stroll is performing quite well this weekend relative to his teammate Fernando Alonso. Alex, there's a lot of factors going on here, but I think the rain might even be intensifying.
Yeah, I think the rain is coming down, at least from what we can see on the camera lens, a little more aggressively. If I may be allowed to theorise wildly about Ferrari,
we don't allow that.
Theorise wildly. I think the resurfacing of the circuit here is not helping them at all. The bumps have been clearly reduced. I was watching races from previous years a few moments before qualifying began, and indeed flying laps from previous years. I think the bumpiness of the circuit has reduced, and for whatever reason, that Ferrari just not plugging into the surface here, which is why the drivers are struggling and without grip. In any case, a disastrous performance, as you say, Rosanna, for a pair of cars we expected to see topping the field this weekend.
It really is an eye-opening Q2, and well, in FP3 we did think the Ferraris were maybe riding a little bit high. They were down on pace, but of course we weren't sure where engine modes were, how hard people were pushing. It seems to have come to fruition that Ferrari just were not quite on the pace. But was there more time in hand for both drivers with some mistakes? There was more time in hand for the likes of Max Verstappen, who ended that session 7th, but just the way he entered the final chicane, he just almost turned in a little bit too late. Got it turned in time, but lost about 3/10.
Yeah, potentially losing a bit of time. I think it's a little wet on the ground. It's harsh to be harsh to drivers having moments through that final chicane, because I think it's the area where it's wettest on the ground.
Rosanna's talking to Checo, big name out in Q1.
Thanks, Harry. Yeah, Checo, tell us what's happening at the moment. Are you all right?
Yeah, I think it was we just couldn't switch on the rear axle at all, and that was really the main thing. I think we have to look at it and understand the reason behind it, because I just couldn't lean on the rear axle. The rear was just stepping out away from me all the time, and that made my session very tricky, very difficult session.
And what does that mean for the race then? Obviously you're starting what I would say out of position, but with these problems, is that going to affect you in the race as well?
Let's see what happens in the race, what the race throw at us, but certainly, yeah, there's a lot of things that we have to understand, because I don't believe it was just a single problem. I think we've had a couple of them, and it's what we need to understand.
And just finally, I mean, everyone was talking about how this track wasn't going to suit you this weekend. Have the curbs been troubling you as much as we all thought? Has that work you've done since Monaco paid off?
I think we've improved over the curbs. It's just, I think today has been a tired thing that we just haven't been able to put it together.
Thanks very much and good luck tomorrow. Well, Harry, there you go. Sergio Perez out in Q1. Not a promising start this weekend for him. He's going to have his work cut out tomorrow, isn't he?
He absolutely will, and we're sure within that contract extension there will be performance clauses, so he will have to make sure he ups his game, certainly in qualifying. But this is a trend we've seen over the years from Checo, where he starts off well and then it just falls away.
Yeah, it has played out over several seasons, hasn't it? I mean, when you look at the start of the year, when they re-signed him, I must admit, from a driver's perspective, yeah, there were other drivers they might have put in that seat, but it was evidence-based in some degree. If you looked hard at the results that he'd had, a couple of podiums in the sprint, and then a sequence of podiums to begin the season. But I do agree, it has fallen apart in the way that he's had a habit of falling apart throughout the years so far. Just unable to get that tyre switched on, but realistically, is that good enough for a driver who's alongside Max Verstappen in what's supposed to be the best car in the field?
Now, just a few moments away then from entering Q3, the final part in qualifying, the top 10 shootout, the fight for pole. And Mercedes, Alex, they're in the hunt again. Both Hamilton and Russell right there.
Well, talking about engine modes, we were sort of writing them off. I was feverishly looking for data to see where they were in terms of their engine management through FP3. We've seen them run those high engine modes in free practice so many times throughout the year and then fade into qualifying. But that Mercedes just looks plugged in these extremely low grip scenarios. And I do think we've got an outlier here in terms of the amount of grip that the circuit is giving out, and could be a reason as to why Mercedes are improving relative to the field, but who knows?
Well, there is all to play for in this pole position shootout. We've got 2 Mercedes, 2 McLarens, 2 RBs, 1 Red Bull, 2 Aston Martins, all vying for their place in the top 10 ahead of what will be the 43rd Canadian Grand Prix at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve circuit. Green light on at the end of the pit lane. 11 minutes and 49 seconds counting down. Rain well and truly in the air. How quickly can this track keep improving? That is the question. It's the 2 McLarens first out on track, along with Max Verstappen.
We've seen significant rain between the 2 sessions here, which appears, as we look across the vista of the island at the moment, to have backed off. So again, another varied situation for the drivers to go out into, and really hard here to pick the moment when you want to try and deliver your lap. In a typical dry session, you'd wait till right at the end, but it's basically whenever it's raining least in any rain affected session where the track's going to be fastest.
Piastri negotiating his way through turns 7 and 8, approaching the hairpin now, warming up his soft compound tyres. Everybody on those soft tyres in Q3, and everybody coming out in the pit lane, just waiting for the 2 Mercedes, George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. They weren't in a rush to get out in Q2, and they're not in a rush to get out now, but are just waiting momentarily for the all clear to head out into the pits.
McLaren heading down to the final chicane. The McLaren that looked so difficult under traction in FP3. I was watching the laps from the drivers, and they've huge corrections going on the steering wheel through the exit of turn 2, through those traction zones. That can be a factor that helps the driver to switch on that rear tyre in the way that Sergio Perez was talking about just a few moments ago. Oscar Piastri makes his way through turn 1 and turn 2. 3 and 4 are a bumpy, tricky chicane, and then 5 and 6 you have to arc in to the apex of 6 after an unsighted braking zone. 7 is an acceleration zone through the exit. And then 8 and 9, again, another unsighted braking zone on a curve. You can borrow a little bit of track on the left-hand side. Then you've got to bounce over the curbs. And McLaren looking excellent in soaking up the curbs throughout the weekend so far. A big curved braking zone down towards turn 10. Get the car as straight as you can. And then there is that grip on the apex, because the corner is way wider than you think through the exit. Pointer straight and get the throttle flat to the floor. Then it's shortest distance to the final chicane. Look for the boards on the left-hand side and pick a braking point from all of your experience of running through the weekend so far, backing the McLaren over that first curve. Oscar Piastri, and using all the road through the exit up to the wall of champions. P1 so far. We'll see what everyone else can do, and Max Verstappen will be next across the line.
Across the line for the Dutchman, he displaces Piastri, a 1:12.358, the opening gambit from Verstappen. Piastri second, and this the sound of Piastri's teammate Lando Norris slots in behind in third, about a second off though, so I wonder if he had a little bit of an issue on his lap that we haven't yet seen. Expect Norris to be much closer than that on his next lap around. Alonso immediately puts himself up into third. Stroll has been going very well so far in this Canadian Grand Prix weekend. The man born in Montreal, searching for another points finish here. Finishes this first lap up in fourth, just slots behind his teammate. Couple of tenths off though.
Wants to show off in front of his local groundhogs, doesn't he, Lance Stroll? And he's doing a fantastic job of it. Very close to Fernando Alonso throughout this weekend so far, but not very close. The battle at the front of the field, 3 tenths clear. Verstappen and Piastri. Alexander Albon put in a great lap to take the Williams into Q3, and he's put in a decent one to take it up to P5.
Albon off the back of securing his and Williams' first points of the season in Monaco, riding high. Indeed, this time last year had a brilliant qualifying with an upgrade and a brilliant race as well, fending off those behind him to finish in the points, trying to replicate that again this season, as Russell and Hamilton now in the Mercedes are going to show us what they have as they embark on their first flying laps. Norris comes into the pits. We'll see him, expect to see him a little later on. Still over 7.5 minutes left of this session. Russell, fastest of anybody, 10.5 quicker than Verstappen in sector 1, negotiates his way through turn 7 and coming towards turn 7 and 8 now on that short blast where you get the DRS, the drag reduction system, slam shut that flap in the rear wing as he brakes for the right left-hander of 7 and 8. Then he approaches turn 9, a slight arcing straight before he slams on the brakes through the hairpin, rises up through the gears, fastest of anybody in the middle sector, but Hamilton's going quicker in the first sector, not as fast as Russell in the middle sector. The two Mercedes though nip and tuck. Russell now approaching the chicane.
Absolutely flying though in comparison to the rest of the field. Both Mercedes, see what they're going to be able to do across the line. This could well be the P1 time for the session so far for George Russell, and indeed it is. 3.5 tenths clear of what Max Verstappen was able to do earlier. Can his teammate oust him? He cannot by 2.8 tenths.
So 1:12 dead for George Russell. Hamilton second, Verstappen third, Piastri, Alonso's fifth, Stroll, Albon, Tsunoda, Norris, Ricciardo are the 10 drivers all vying for their position for Sunday's Grand Prix grid position.
The Empire strikes back. Mercedes looking every bit the potential pole sitters here. This is going to be a great weekend for them. What a moment for them after the difficulties they've had for the beginning of the year.
Now, what's interesting about this, guys, is that it looks like this has come out of nowhere, but actually Mercedes, if you think about it, have been piling upgrade after upgrade onto this car since Miami. The first one was at Miami, then there was another upgrade that added to that in Imola, another one again with the new front wing in Monaco. Of course, Monaco's a slightly odd circuit, only one car had that there. And now we've got both cars with the fully upgraded spec. Mercedes have been saying behind the scenes that they feel that they're now on top of where things were going wrong, that they have a baseline from which to develop from. They've been talking as if these upgrades will eventually bring them up to a position where they can challenge at the front of the field. I don't think they expected it to happen so quickly, but Montreal's a slightly odd, quirky circuit. It's also a circuit where Lewis Hamilton has always been brilliant, and George Russell has outqualified him 7-1 this year. So perhaps when you bring all that into the mix together, it's not that surprising, perhaps.
Is this the place it all comes together? Neither driver, Lewis Hamilton or George Russell, have been on pole position since a Hungarian Grand Prix. It was Hamilton in 2023, George Russell the year before that, looking to try and get back onto that top step for the Grand Prix. Can they lock out the front row? They will have challenges from Max Verstappen. They will have challenges from the two McLarens, and that really is who we're expecting to be in the fight in this last 4.5 minutes of Q3. The clouds are still dark above. The rain, though, holding fire for the time being. Piastri on a quick lap now, coming through turns 3 and 4, approaching the right-hand arc of 5 as he brakes for the left-hander of 6, which feeds you through the right-hander of 7. That's where you can activate the drag reduction system. The DRS rear wing flap flies open as Piastri flies down to the braking zone of turns 8 and 9. A quick right-left as it brings you out towards the next short straight that actually arcs slightly to the left before he brakes for the hairpin.
Gentle improvements for Piastri here. He's a little bit down on what Russell's done. 2 tenths down already as he rounds the hairpin at turn 10. An interesting time for McLaren to be running, isn't it? It's early on in the session in comparison to the last across the line stuff that we've been seeing so far. Perhaps they think a little bit of rain. We did hear them say that on the radio, didn't we, at the beginning of this session? They might have drops at the end. In any case, this could be the moment for Piastri in the McLaren.
Piastri currently 4th to the line. What is it going to be for the the Aussie goes up to second, a 1:12.1, a tenth off George Russell. Fastest of anybody, though, in that final sector. With 3 minutes just over that remaining, Piastri shows what he has. Second fastest. His teammate Lando Norris will show us what he's got as he comes into the braking zone for the hairpin.
So this then, a strategy for McLaren. 3 minutes to go on the clock. Plenty of their competitors, including both Mercedes and Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, are in the pit lane. McLaren choosing to go early. Piastri's shown everything that he's got. Norris looks to be on a really sharp lap here, sitting only 9th in the session at the moment.
Lando Norris never even scored a point in Canada, never qualified higher than 7th around the circuit. Gilles Villeneuve crosses the line. It's second fastest for Lando Norris. Pips his teammate, but still can't find enough time to match or beat George Russell. But it's less than half a tenth between the two Brits, currently sitting pretty at the top of the timing screens. Russell, Norris, Piastri, the top three.
An absolute picture of patience down in the Red Bull garage. We can see the mechanics holding the tyre blankets and just letting Max Verstappen go at the absolute correct moment. It was great to see the calmness and composure there with all of the mechanics around the car. Calmness and composure continues down at Mercedes, where they're still waiting in the pit lane with 2 minutes to go in the session.
They've been doing that, though, in every session so far. Not in a rush to get out there are Mercedes. They have the ultimate test of patience. Russell has now given in and he's out on track, and Hamilton, so too, leaves the pit lane. Okay then, laps coming through. Lance Stroll on a quick lap at the moment. He's coming through the middle sector. We'll see what Ricciardo has now. He's just started his first fly. Daniel Ricciardo making it into Q3 and trying to out-qualify his teammate. So far, it's not been going in Ricciardo's favour. He's only out-qualified the Japanese driver once so far this year. Tsunoda, 7 times has he out-qualified Daniel Ricciardo, who will come out on top in the next minute or so. Lance Stroll, meanwhile, well, it's quite an even picture between the two Aston Martin's driver, 4 apiece when it comes to qualifying. Stroll making his way down the back straight now.
Yeah, they're both decently down, though, aren't they, in the middle sector. It's a mid-top 10 effort potentially for Stroll, although he's got a nice toe from the Red Bull down that back straight, 333 kilometres per hour in the speed trap on the toe.
You just think, is that going to come back to bite you, though, as you come into the braking zone for the chicane? Then the Red Bull sets off on his lap. Stroll crosses the line, does find time, but only enough for 6th at the moment. 7 tenths down on George Russell. Daniel Ricciardo will be next across the line, coming down towards the final chicane. Now Lewis Hamilton gets nicely out of the way. The Australian driver, who is under pressure to retain that seat next season, fighting for his Formula One future after below par results, crosses the line. It's 4th fastest for the RB driver.
Alonso then making his way across the line in the other Aston Martin, looking like he's got similar pace to his teammate. It's 5th for Alonso, but the car we're watching at the moment, Harry, is Verstappen, who's purple in the first sector, and making his way then down towards 10, slightly down on Russell as he breaks the Red Bull in a straight line and connects beautifully with the apex of T10, and off the Honda engine machine goes then down towards that final chicane of the lap.
Will Max Verstappen spoil George Russell's party? He'll give it his best shot. Yuki Tsunoda slots up into 8th. He won't be able to out-qualify his teammate Daniel Ricciardo. Round the chicane for Max Verstappen to the line. Can he break the Mercedes hearts? It's an exact same lap time. It's a match. Russell, a 1:12 dead. Max Verstappen, a 1:12 dead. But because Russell set it first, he retains the P1 position. Lando Norris will not improve on 3rd. Russell crosses the line, does find time in the final sector, but can't improve overall. What about Lewis Hamilton? He's down in sector 1 and 2. He's not going to be able to do it either. Stays down in 7th for Lewis Hamilton. It's not the way he wanted that to go, and that'll be qualifying done and dusted. George Russell will start the Canadian Grand Prix on pole position alongside Max Verstappen in the Red Bull and Lando Norris behind in 3rd. Russell looking quick all weekend long, converting the pace in that upgraded Mercedes to his first pole position around the Canadian Grand Prix circuit. Gilles Villeneuve, his first pole position since the 2022 Hungarian Grand Prix. A magnificent result for Mercedes and Russell, and it's what they needed at this point in the season, Alex.
Toto Wolff beaming in the garage. He knows that Mercedes are back, and they're back in a big way. Identical times, though, at the front of a Formula One grid, and arms in the air for George Russell. He knows what that'll mean to fans, but he also knows what that'll mean to the team.
Yeah, boy, George.
Amazing. I'll let you. 0-0-1. Yep. Thank you so much. I'm proud of everybody for this turnaround. All that work back in the factory. Thank you. Come on.
It's like he's won the race. They've clearly got more decimal points.
I was going to say
Mercedes system, because we have it as a 112 dead, but obviously they've got one more place than we have. I mean, you said it right there. Mercedes are back. George Russell, who joined this team hoping to suddenly be in the fight for podiums, for wins, for championships, and then they took the biggest step back possible, and he has kept cool, calm and collected. And this year, since he actually joined Mercedes, has consistently either equalled or been a match for Lewis Hamilton and bettered him, and now is trying to enjoy what could be the resurgence of Mercedes as we go further and deeper into this season. And the first step is here in Canada on pole.
You know, your mind is cast back to all of those radio messages. We know the car is bad. Please drive it. I can't drive this thing. So little grip. This is such a moment for that team to find themselves on pole position in qualifying at a circuit where, to all intents and purposes, with the pace they had in FP3, it looks like they're in the hunt to win the race. And what a moment that would be for a Mercedes who've been in the doldrums for what feels like so long.
Fantastic work from George Russell, who will start the Canadian Grand Prix on pole position alongside him, Max Verstappen. Then it's the two McLarens, Norris ahead of Piastri. Daniel Ricciardo, who took his first Grand Prix win here back in 2014, starts a fantastic 5th place for the RB driver ahead of Alonso. Hamilton will be disappointed with 7th ahead of Tsunoda. Lance Stroll 9th, and Alex Albon gets that Williams. Another top 10 start, Rosanna.
Goodness me, I enjoyed that qualifying session, guys. I'm looking forward to debriefing and analysing it all with you on the Checkered Flag podcast later on. But Alex, you said this was a huge moment for the Mercedes team. It's a huge moment for George Russell, but what happened to Lewis Hamilton down in P7?
Yeah, it's an interesting one that I was watching his lap unfold. I'm assuming some sort of a mistake for Lewis Hamilton on the final run there. To be honest, unbelievably focused on whether Max Verstappen could wrestle pole position away from George Russell, and from the looks of the Mercedes faces, that's what they were focused on as well. Lewis will be disappointed with that one, but he'll also know from his experience in Formula One that if the car is there, then the future is potentially just that little bit brighter. And although it's your teammate up in lights in this qualifying session, there's every chance then it could be you up in lights with an upgraded car further through the season.
Lewis Hamilton's future is rather red looking, isn't it, though? Interestingly, though, of course, he had that upgraded front wing on the car in FP3 and in qualifying. George Russell has had a bit longer to get used to that, having run it back in Monaco. So I'm looking forward to asking Lewis Hamilton if that was part of the problem today. But yes, what a moment. The crowd are absolutely loving it, Harry, aren't they? Up on their feet, cheering, lots of fans with Mercedes caps on. What a moment for the fans who've stayed so loyal to the Mercedes team through the doldrums, as you say. It's been a difficult few years. What a difference a front wing makes, hey?
It certainly does, doesn't it? And the crowd loving this as well, getting to see Formula One cars in full flow. And we'll hear from the pole sitter in just a few moments' time, who will be talking to a former Formula One driver himself. Jolyon Palmer asking the questions to pole sitter George Russell for the Canadian Grand Prix.
George Russell, pole position. That was a qualifying session for the ages, and you got it in a dead heat. But it wasn't a fluke. You were so quick today.
Oh, amazing. It feels so good, So much hard work back at the factory has gone into this, and I'm hoping, we said it in Monaco, we hope this is the start of something for our season, and I think it is. So
I miss this feeling. I miss this feeling.
Yeah, it's amazing. You had such a big cheer from the crowd here. They love to see a Mercedes back on top. Where's this pace come from, George?
It's awesome here. Every time we come to Montreal, there's such good energy from all the fans, and excited for tomorrow. So obviously first step done, but obviously now we've got our eyes on that win.
Can you keep Max behind you?
Why not? Of course. Let's go for it. I think the car's been feeling amazing. You know, since we brought some upgrades to Monaco, we've sort of really been in that fight now. So we're going for it tomorrow.
All right. Best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Well done, George.
And you could hear what the crowd think of that. Russell, eloquent as always with his answers. The best qualifying up until now of third back at the start of the season.
Well, Max, there was literally nothing in it today, but you have to settle for second place. That must be frustrating when it's a dead heat.
I mean, it's how it is, right? I think overall we still had a good qualifying. I mean, the whole weekend has been still a bit tricky for us. But to be P2, I take it. I mean, going into qualifying, I would have definitely taken that. So that it was that close at the end, makes it really exciting for tomorrow as well.
And this looks like more conventional Red Bull than what we saw in Monaco. Have you felt better than last time out, able to fight tomorrow?
I mean, I felt good in Monaco, but it was just not our track. It was not happening for us. This weekend, again, we didn't have a great build-up to today. But, I think it will be quite an interesting race with the tyres tomorrow, how they are going to fare. The weather as well. It keeps on coming in and out, the rain. So, hopefully it will be very exciting.
What's the plan? Attack at the start or play the long game tomorrow?
I don't know. We'll think about it. I'm not that stressed about it.
All right. Well done, Max. Good luck.
Verstappen, who will start the Canadian Grand Prix in second alongside George Russell. And the man in third will be Lando Norris for McLaren.
Lando, 2 whole hundredths away from pole position.
Is that it?
Third. That's it. Great lap.
It's a shame.
Not quite enough today, but you must be happy.
Yeah, I'm super happy. I mean, first of all, congrats to Mr. Russell. I knew he's been quick all weekend, so congrats to him and Mercedes. But I'm happy with third. When it's so close, you always think, could I have jumped in the car for that little bit more? But third is a good job by us, so I'm happy and excited for tomorrow.
It looked such a tricky session from the cockpit. The threat of rain that never really came. You had to be on it every single lap and not miss a beat.
Pretty much, but that's Montreal. I think that's why we love it here. It's one of the best places to come to every year. So, I love it. I mean, it's why we're all smiling and we have a good time. It's tricky. Like a lot of the time, you're thinking you're going to crash half of it, but when you put a nice lap in and you end up top 3, it's always a nice feeling.
Yeah, it was thrilling to watch. And you put some dicey overtakes last year. You got 2 to make tomorrow.
Yeah, 2 overtakes tomorrow. Easy, light work. So. No, I'm excited to see what we can do. Car's been great all season, especially the last 3-4 races. We've been on a good roll, but 2 very fast drivers ahead, plenty of fast drivers behind. So we'll put on a good show tomorrow.
All right, well done, Lando. Good luck.
Cheers, man. Thank you.
So that's your top 3 for the Canadian Grand Prix. George Russell taking pole position, and he will line up alongside Max Verstappen. He was able to set the identical time as George Russell, but he will slot into P2. And P3, Lando Norris. Well, 3 different teams in the top 3 spots, Harry. Are you satisfied with that one?
I'll take it. I will take it, and then some. Yeah, I mean, fantastic. Yeah, 2 Brits in the top 3 as well. Sets us up for a brilliant Grand Prix on Sunday. And, milliseconds. On our screens, it's a dead heat. On Mercedes, with the extra decimal point, it's 0.0001. This is Formula One. This is how it should be. Neck and neck. You don't know who is going to start ahead of the other until the very last lap. Perfection.
Oh, I really enjoyed that qualifying session. Alex Brundle, as a driver then, how does this qualifying pace translate into race trim, do you think, for the Mercedes? Can they hold on to that top spot?
Well, everybody always calls this an easy circuit to overtake at, but then when you look in the modern era, the statistics don't bear that out. Last 7 races here, 1 here from pole position on the road. Only Sebastian Vettel, of course, taking his 5-second penalty after the event in 2019 spoils that stat, but it's going to be relatively difficult for him to hold Max Verstappen behind. We know how good that Red Bull has been all year in saving its tyres, in managing the Grand Prix, and you know how fast it is on the DRS as well. From everything I've seen, though, the race pace of the Mercedes is pretty strong, just as strong as the Red Bull throughout the limited running that they've had. One thing's for sure, it's going to be thrilling to watch them try and do it. That is, if the race is even held in the same conditions. Chances of rain as well tomorrow, Rosanna, could turn everything on its head.
Yeah, we got away with it in qualifying, didn't we? Just a few drops right at the start, a little later on in qualifying, but the heavens, they did not open for this session. They may well open for tomorrow's race, as you say. But, you know, Alex, I'm going to summarise what you just said. I think we've got a race on our hands. That's what I'm taking away from your summarising there. Guys, I'm looking forward to the Canadian Grand Prix. Thank you very much for calling the shots during qualifying. George Russell taking pole position then for Mercedes. Are they back? We will find out during the Grand Prix. Can George Russell take Mercedes' first win in 2024? Do check out our Checkered Flag podcast. We're going to be analysing everything we've seen over the last hour. That will be ready very soon for you, wherever you get your podcasts. And then we'll be live tomorrow from 6:30 on BBC 5 Live. And the lights go out at 7 o'clock. Do join us. We think it might just be a thriller. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.